Welcome to the Vault Excel. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to bring you a few updates pertaining to breaking news. Thank you for joining me. Sarah Boone, who is going to be going to trial soon, better known as the suitcase murder of her boyfriend. The trial has been delayed until May. I believe it's May 3rd. They will resume, I guess, a hearing. So I'll bring you that said update pertaining to Sarah Boone, but obviously her counsel is not ready to proceed. Judge denies Alex Murdaugh's requests for a new murder trial. That content has just been uploaded in the queue, so he will not be getting a new trial. I brought you commentary pertaining to dead men found out in the Mojave Desert. KTL5 has just announced that they have arrested 6 men for those murders. And it is being said that one of the men who was shot made the 911 call that he and his associates had been shot and killed. KCAL News has the press conference if you're interested. It was uploaded 14 hours ago. They have the suspects' pictures uploaded to the public to show you the men that they have arrested in that. So they do have an arrest pertaining to those dead people found out in the Mojave Desert. Thank you for joining me. The South Carolina clerk in the Murdaugh debacle denies attempting to influence the jury in his previous trial. 2 open investigations are on the table pertaining to Becky Hill in her alleged attempts to taint the jury. Let's hear what they have to say pertaining to questions asked in court. Thank you for joining me. National Desk is the source.
Interact with any juror in an attempt to influence their view of the facts in the State v. Murdaugh case?
No.
All right, now I want to ask you some specifics about that and some allegations that have been raised. At any time, did you tell the jury not to be fooled by evidence presented by Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys?
I did not.
At any time, did you instruct the jury to watch him closely and look at his actions?
I did not.
At any time, did you instruct the jury or tell the jury to look at his movements?
No.
At any time, as the jury moved to deliberate, did you tell the jury this shouldn't take long?
No.
At any time, did you tell the jury that the defense case, watch out for the defense case, they're going to try to throw you off, or anything along those lines that was meant to influence the jurors against Mr. Murdaugh?
No.
Is she telling the truth? Why do you have a few people saying that she did try to persuade them to not listen to any testimony pertaining to Mr. Murdaugh, watch him, so on and so forth? Did she say anything to the jury negatively about Mr. Murdaugh during the trial? This is Becky Hill. As most of you know, she's written a book, and all that's up for scrutiny and debate. Who met whom, when, blah, blah, blah. It's just a lot of nonsense. But that's said information pertaining to the Murdaugh trial and Becky Hill. Mr. Murdaugh has been denied a retrial, and Becky Hill right now is currently under investigation. 2 investigations pertaining to her. SLED is the lead on this investigation into this Colton County clerk, and WSAV3 is the source of that news. I'll go ahead and play that just in case some of you are not familiar with what is actually going on. Thank you for joining me. This was uploaded 2 weeks ago, everybody. Thank you. All this noise, Lord have mercy.
An
is now investigating Colleton County Clerk of Court Becky Hill for her alleged actions during the Murdaugh murder trial.
WSAV's Joseph Leonard joins us now from our Lowcountry newsroom with what he found.
Abusing her power and helping make sure the jury found Alec Murdaugh guilty of murder. That's what News 3 has officially learned. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division is investigating. So what does this mean for Becky Hill's future and for Alec Murdaugh?
It's unfortunate. It's not good for our system, and it's confusing to the public and troubling to these jurors.
Attorney Joe McCullough is talking about new SLED investigations pointed at Colleton County Clerk of Court Becky Hill. One centers on her exchanges with jurors. Jury affidavits claim Hill pressured jurors to find Murdaugh guilty of murdering his wife and son, possibly going as far as to fabricate a Facebook post to remove a juror who may have believed Murdaugh innocent. McCullough represents several of those jurors and says if it's true, this clerk of court could be headed back to a courtroom, this time as a criminal defendant.
It has ramifications in a lot of ways, but of course, jury interference can lead to criminal charges. There's a very specific statute under South Carolina law providing for criminal penalties up to and including a term of imprisonment for jury interference.
The other charge focuses on if she used her elected office to make money. After the murder trial, Hill published a book about her experience. But after the jury tampering allegations and admitting to plagiarizing part of the book, production came to a halt. On January 16th, the judge will decide if there should be a hearing on those jury interference claims, a hearing which could lead to a new murder trial. And even if the judge approves the motion, McCullough says that doesn't mean a trial will ever happen.
Ultimately, if a new trial is granted, that doesn't mean it has to occur. I think that would be a consideration for the Attorney General's office to make, and that would be made in consultation with the victims.
The defense will have a new set of ears hearing their latest claims. All of this evidence and new arguments will be heard by a new judge. Judge Newman was forced by law to retire. Former South Carolina Supreme Court Judge Jean Toll is now presiding over the case. Joseph Leonard, WSAV News 3, on your side.
Very interesting. Didn't know that about the judge, African-American judge, forced to retire. Is it because of his presiding over the trial? Also, I would assume he has a good relationship or had a good relationship with Miss Hill. Very interesting information. WSAV3 is the source. Once again, she is denied in court recently in the Murdaugh hearings that she had nothing to do with tampering with people. The jury. What's baffling about all of this is just from what I watched from the documentary about this case, there was an African-American female that went down there to, I guess, write a piece for a newspaper. And somebody tampered with her vehicle. If I'm not mistaken, in the documentary, her tires were slashed. A tire was slashed. So, or vandalized. Something happened. See, you do have people who will rally for a defendant. You do have people who will tamper with the jury. Jury will go back and repeat things that have been said in trial, and they know they're not supposed to, because people are people. That's the gist of this story. A man has killed his family. A man still has some people following in behind him, like they're in the occult. Don't want the truth to get out about anything pertaining to Mr. Murdaugh, his family, the boys, whichsoever. Because I found that baffling. Somebody bothering this lady. She's just doing her job to write a piece for, a public entity. So why are you bothering her? So this goes to show you the mindset of people. Small town mania, perhaps, but it happens everywhere. You have people who rally behind the suspects. You have it every day. And this is the very reason why a lot of crimes aren't solved, because one, people don't like to get involved. People like to covet for these crooks, criminals, people who fear for their safety to speak and come forward. And then you have this issue with Miss Hill in a legal capacity, using her status, title to meddle. And that would be interesting to have a clerk become a defendant. I believe she said something. Because what I have to ask myself, why would these people lie? Now, of course, we know people do lie, make up stuff. Was this an issue of people being upset at her because she wrote the book, or somebody didn't like her during the trial? This is a personal vendetta against her. I don't know. But I got a feeling she probably did say something to the jury panel, said something to somebody. She picked a person she thought she could talk to and canoodle with, and she gave inappropriate commentary to that said person or person, and she knew better. She knew she wasn't supposed to say anything. I'm going to end this commentary with this. I think it's time that all courthouses take a good look at the maneuverings of people pertaining to the jury, having access to the jury. That needs to be looked into. Every courthouse that has a jury, you need to be careful who you have around the jury, such as the clerk or whomever, because nobody needs to be talking to them privately, pulling them to the side. The only thing you're supposed to do is give them instructions, the judge, and then somebody leads them into the court or out of the court, and that needs to be it. There's no conversations. There's no exchanging of phone numbers. There's no pulling anyone to the side to talk about anything, because I've never heard of such. So this would lead me to believe if it happened here in South Carolina, it's probably happened in other places, because I've never heard of a clerk being this personal with the jury and dealt with the jury. I didn't even know that went on, because I don't know the legal wranglings inside the court as far as what the clerk does. When I think of the clerk, I think of the person that's over the business of the court. You know, like when you go in to pay for fines and things like that. I didn't know a clerk had this much latitude and personal wranglings with the jury. I've just never heard of anything like this before. Like I said, maybe this goes on often, but I had never heard of it. Because I thought, okay, if you're in the court, why are you anywhere near the jury? If you're supposed to be, what? Giving information, relaying information. You don't have any business talking to the jury members. So that's very interesting. That's my update pertaining to the Murdaugh trial and Becky Hill. Once again, Becky Hill is being investigated by SLED. So that's that. Okay, so I'm giving you an update pertaining to the 6 people found dead out in the Mojave Desert. I think it's more than 6. Wait a minute. I have to go back because there's quite a few people. They've arrested 6 in that case. I need to go here and make sure I get the right amount of people that were found dead. Somebody called. I guess before dying, they made a phone call. Yes. So that's interesting. 6 people arrested and 6 people dead. So I want to make sure I didn't repeat that wrong. Yes. They've arrested 6 people. To the 6 people found dead in a remote area of the Mojave Desert in San Bernardino County. Investigators believe it's connected to an illegal marijuana grow. Make sure I throw that in there as well. So I don't know what happened out there. Who said what? If it was a setup to rob the people, I have no idea. But those are my updates pertaining to that case. What is the truth in this Kansas City debacle? Waiting on autopsy reports and toxicology reports. As I said before in my last live stream, it'll be very interesting if we find out this isn't drug related. Then there will definitely be some smoke in the city. A neighbor has now come forward to say he filmed police cars and the woman outside, which we now know is the fiance of one of the victims. Naturally, it's dark. You can't really see anything but just the cars outside and the cars left by the men. So his video shows the cars parked on the street. But what you always have to ask yourself, this is 2 days after the fact of the men being at the house. So I'm going to say this again. Were the cars parked on the street when they got to the house, or were they moved? A little bit of snow was on the ground at the time of filming and at the time of bodies discovered. You also got to ask what time the victims got out there. the circumstances for which they got out there. Did they pass away outside? Did they pass away inside? We get information from Mr. Paserno that his client, Mr. Jordan Willis, is depressed from all this social media and news coverage pertaining to the death of his alleged friends. And I'm going to say alleged until I know further. Okay? Alleged friends. And he's an alleged friend to them. That's my opinion. So we have all these conflicting stories brought to the public by Mr. Paserno pertaining to his client. We have a new person, Mr. Alex Weimer Lee, to say the version that Jordan gave was not his version. I'm not here to even keep repeating it because I start to get confused at some point when I have to keep going back over what Peter said and what Dick said. I don't like doing that. That's why I never could work in a court system, such as being a lawyer, a lawyer's assistant, however you call it. Some of you have said, you should have been in law. No, I couldn't, because I don't like repeating the same damn thing over and over. And that's all you would be doing when you're dealing with criminal cases. It's he said and she said. And trying to remember who said what. Think about it. Think about cases where they have 300 witnesses. You got to repeat all that stuff that somebody said. Who wants to do that? I definitely not I. But anywho, neighbor has come forward, younger looking cat. I'm kind of curious, sir, why are you just now showing this video? We're into 3 weeks, going into 3 weeks of the discovery of these men, because allegedly they met at this man's house on the 7th. It's the 9th at near 10 p.m. that they were discovered by a young lady and another male, and ambulances and the police were called. You were filming out the window of your house. So I'm trying to understand, why is this just now coming out, this video? The video doesn't really show anything. I watched it earlier. It doesn't show anything. Just somebody peering out the window with their camera. But the point is, why are you just now showing it? Is it because what? The police told you not to release the information? Number one, did you turn this video over to the police, sir? And then we're going to ask the ultimate question. Have you been paid to release the video? Lord have mercy. I can't with this. So Jordan is depressed. That's the latest gossip. And now a neighbor has come out. He's new to the neighborhood, new to the house, new to the neighborhood. Let's hear what he has to say. News Nation is the source. And before I get into this commentary, I'm going to go ahead and say this because you're going to probably see it in the comment sections for those of you who do like to read the comments. Some people are perturbed with Miss Banfield. They feel like she was inappropriate in what she asked during this interview. I'm not going to say it, but you can use your imagination. There were some not so nice comments below this video, Miss Banfield. And Miss Banfield, you're getting a little flack lately pertaining to your disposition during your news broadcasts. Pertaining to your questioning and being insensitive to people and repeating a source said, because you've done that quite often with the Idaho 4 case. And last year I was kind of perturbed myself because I was thinking, who the hell keeps running to this lady, talking to her about these dead kids, but you can't tell us who said it and what and why. And then between you and Mr. Gonsalves, I mean, it's like walking into glass, literally. It's something every day. He said it, she said, and a source said what people want to know. Who, where, why, what? Who said what? Who told you what? Who gave you access to what? I mean, it gets old at some point. And now you are not going to be liked after this interview with this reporter. And then you're on a split screen. Let's hear the business, everybody. Lord have mercy. Lord, will you all please release the evidence in this case so these people can get closure, because this is now getting ready to get ignorant.
Brady, he was the neighbor who lives right across from Jordan Willis, who just by happenstance looked out at the exact moment that 911 was being called. Ashton, we know now that that was Clayton's fiance that actually discovered those bodies, called 911 and then alerted the authorities. Just walk me through what you saw in that moment.
So basically, I was just going, turn off all my lights. I was getting ready for bed, locking the doors. I went to lock my front door, and I saw a woman come out of the backyard on her phone, and she looked distressed because she kept looking back towards the house, and I thought it was weird. But I just moved in, so I really didn't know much, and so I just went back to my room. 10 minutes later, I saw an ambulance drive by, and I was like, well, that's just weird. Something's going on. Went to the front room, looked out, and I saw that there was already 3 cop cars, and there was a man detained, and the woman was talking to the other police. And basically, I kind of watched that conspire for an hour or two. The man eventually left. The police searched the house, went through the backyards, everything, and I had no idea what had happened. And the next morning, I saw the news that they had found 3 dead bodies, and I just was kind of in disbelief. I was like, wow, I watched that happen.
Right, and actually we're looking at that video that you shot right there on the top left corner of your screen. So basically you're saying that's the video where you're actually looking out and you can see Jordan Willis being detained.
That's probably within the first 5 to 10 minutes. I was like, oh my goodness, something serious is going on at least. So yeah.
So your red flags were going off in that moment, but even before that, right? Because you saw some of these victims' cars that were right here parked in front of your house, and that also kind of alerted you, right? Because that was unusual.
Yeah, we had just moved in, but that week we had never seen those cars there. And then all of a sudden, that whole weekend, there was cars parked right in front of our drive, and they never left. And they stayed there until the police came, and even after that, we found out they were deceased. Yes, those cars never left.
And obviously that was something that raised your suspicions at all. Tell me, I know you hadn't lived here for very long, right? But tell me at all about Jordan Willis, what you know about him. I mean, did you ever see him out and about? Was he friendly? Did he come by and talk to you ever?
Honestly, I have never seen him out. I never saw him or talked to him, so I cannot speak for that, honestly. I do not know.
How about the fact that just something that is so strange, this case in general is bizarre and we don't have many answers. But the fact of the matter is 3 men were outside for 2 days on this backyard, one sitting up in a chair, 2 laying down on their backs, frozen to death. I mean, how do you wrap your mind around all that information?
It's a lot, honestly. I imagine it has something to do with a bad drug or something, but it's strange that how long it occurred for people for something to notice like that. If it happened on a Sunday, that's a long time, and I feel like something should have been said, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's hard to say out loud because you don't have all the information, but the fact of the matter is 3 men are now dead. Does it feel like you're getting, or your community is getting, the answers it deserves right now? That seems to be the big issue that the families have, is it just doesn't feel like they're getting closure because they're not getting answers.
Yeah, I feel for the families and that they just want to know what really happened. And I feel like if we need to know, we need to know. I'm sure answers are going to come out, but I know a lot of people are wondering what happened around here. That's for sure.
What is the talk of the town? How are people talking about it still? Because no doubt about it, the whole world is looking at this case and talking about it. So how do you and your friends talk about it, process it, work through this whole story?
We just kind of sit down and talk about it. Sometimes we're just randomly, we'll be talking about like what could have really happened? Like how do your 3 buddies, just you not notice them for 2 days outside in the backyard? So it's really strange for me and all of our friends. It's really hard for me to say, but I feel like it had to have been just maybe an accident. I don't know. It needs more investigation, though, I think.
Ashley, hang tight. I think Ashley Banfield has a question. Go ahead, Ashley.
I do. I don't think he can hear me with an IFB, but if he can't, pass this question on. Can you ask Ashton if he saw the bodies coming out of the house? Because we learned tonight on Chris Cuomo that the father of one of the men knew that one of the men was died or frozen in a position in a lawn chair on the back porch. And I wondered if he saw gurneys come out with 3 bodies, or if he saw something unusual in the position of the bodies that were brought out of the house.
Sure. We want to know what you saw beyond those initial things that you've shared already, in specific about the bodies coming out of this house. Were you still awake at that time? Did you witness gurneys or medical examiners actually coming out with these bodies or taking them out?
So I actually did not. After that, everyone kind of cleared out. So I didn't know what had happened. So I just went to bed. I thought it was just a misunderstanding or something between a wife and a husband, but that wasn't it at all. So I went to sleep, went to work the next day. And when I was at work, I got an email or a message from a friend, sending me the picture of the article about the dead people. And I was like, Oh my goodness. So I honestly did not see an ambulance actually gurney anyone out or anything.
What do you remember about the conditions during those days here in Kansas City? Obviously, these bodies were found frozen. Do you remember it being cold, freezing? Obviously, you saw this woman talking on her cell phone at night, 10 o'clock at night in the winter weather, and so that raised your alarms. But what do you remember just about the temperatures or the weather around that time?
It was cold. It was really cold. I had gone hunting that Sunday, and we hunted a pond, and we actually had to put up pretty much an ice prop in there to make the pond open. So I mean, if that tells you anything, we could walk on the ice. That's how thick it was. So I mean, it was definitely below freezing and not temperatures you want to just be outside hanging out in with no clothes.
Yeah, enough to raise red flags. Ashton, thank you very much for sharing that insight with us.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find news.
All right. Danfield and Company. Oh, Lordy, what a mess. So he knew something was up. Flow of traffic, woman outside talking on the phone. Police, ambulance. Really cold outside. He had went hunting. Said he had to put a hole, I guess, down in the pond so you could walk on the ice. Very interesting. So those are pertinent things that people have been asking anyway. How cold it was. But you always have to use some kind of logic. And then the thing about logic is what I do and what you do are two different things, as I have pointed out in this commentary. And you have to chop that up only because you don't have all the information. So you have to say, well, what he would do, she would do, maybe I wouldn't do. So maybe somebody would stand outside in the cold and talk, because we have seen people do it. It's not like it has never happened. It's just maybe you'd say, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't stand outside in the cold. I am not going to stand out in 40-degree weather or 20-degree weather, 30-degree weather talking. But I think we all have done it. To some point, we've talked to a neighbor. Maybe we weren't fully dressed and we knew we were getting cold, but we should have gone in. But we also weren't found dead outside. He finds it strange. Yes, these cars have been sitting there. He noticed the cars. So at that time of filming, the cars are on the street. So now we have verification of the cars. That's why it's always good to have something. Now, when I first saw the video, the headline, I just assumed it was going to be like doorbell camera footage. But no, he actually standing up filming outside, filming through the windows, rather, of the traffic that night. And at this point, law enforcement, ambulance, the girl, whomever else was on the scene, they're outside. It's a very wicked story. But then you also hear someone say, if you know everything, once you find out everything, then you'll understand. Well, I don't know if I can agree with that either, because if you're not in the house, there's no CCTV footage of this man's movement inside of the house. There's no CCTV footage of the backyard. Then you can't tell me I can understand. Let's be truthful. Even if the toxicology reports come back that these young men imbibing some type of fluid or drugs or poison, that still doesn't explain how it got in them. I mean, you can just use deduction. They either drank something, smoked something, ate something, or they were injected with something. That's still vast possibilities. We want to know how they died, of course. But even if we get the results, you're still going to be asking questions. So it still won't explain anything. It'll just explain how they died. But then the next question is going to be, okay, how did they get it in them? Who gave it to them? Did they know it was something or what they thought it was? See, you're not going to know that because 3 are dead and they can't tell us anything. So all you have to rely on is the person whose house where the event took place. He's been cooperating, says his attorney, with the police. But then you have to ask yourself how long that's going to last. Because we have seen in certain cases of suspicious homicides, deaths, people at some point stop cooperating with the police. I'm not here to say that Mr. Jordan will do this. I'm just saying in certain cases, people stop cooperating. They let the lawyer do all the talking, and they let the lawyer do the navigating with law officials. And in this weird case, Mr. Paserno doesn't need to be talking to anybody. Let me make that clear. He doesn't need to be talking to the police, FBI, CIA, Drug Task Force. He doesn't even need to be talking to the news because he does not know how to deliver a message correctly. And I would put some of that blame most likely on his stupid client. Yeah, I'm going to say the client is stupid because why are you double backing? I would be talking to my client to say, hey, I can't keep going out here throwing myself to the wolves, changing versions. This does not look good. And I'm a professional. I know my craft. And this is not a good look for and this is not a good look for you. So somebody needs to get on an even page with delivering the messages. So what do you have to say, the chat, pertaining to this information by the neighbor? It's not really much that he said. He's just claiming what he saw and what he did as far as the weather. Not much of anything. Not to be disrespectful. But I'm curious to why, Mr. Ashton Brady, why are you just now showing this video? When did you give the news this video? Have you been paid for this video? I'm just curious. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. The link is in the chat if you would like to come up on the panel to give your opinion pertaining to this new information and any information that has been relayed to the public by the news. We have a few things circulating all at once. Mother who doesn't think her child could afford drugs alongside his friends. That's Miss Marquez, the mother, Dave Harrington, which I rebut that because anybody can buy drugs. You don't have to be a millionaire to buy drugs. I think we know this from seeing people who are addicted to drugs. All walks of life get high. All walks of life sample drugs. All walks of life are handed drugs, offered drugs, and sometimes it's laced with other components. And you do not have to be a millionaire to imbibe drugs or alcohol or any other type of narcotic, pills, so on and so forth. So I think she should stop saying that. Now, I do believe Mr. Jordan knows something. Alex may know something as well. But I'm not here to put all that on Mr. Jordan as far as he's the only one that could afford the drugs. That makes no sense to say that. I hate to say this, but because I don't want to seem disrespectful to this lady, but that's an ignorant comment. Oh, it's got to be him. He's the one with the money. I've also asked the question, is it possible that some of these guys were users and nobody wants to say the truth, that they are known users or have dappled with drugs, drug use, addiction? Will we find out down the road that one of these guys or more has dappled and or has an addiction or previous addiction to drugs, pills, alcohol? Were any of them alcoholics? Ask that question. I've tried to be very respectful to the family members and the storyline because I don't want to go down the rabbit hole as I did with the Savannah case of assuming this, and then it came out not to be true, because that was a debacle down in Savannah with the woman found in the woods. Most of us thought her daughter and son-in-law had something to do with her death, and then we find out later, well, boyfriend or whatever, that the daughter was never arrested for anything nefarious pertaining to the death of the mother. So I will not make any claims of what happened that night. But what I will say is I do believe Mr. Jordan knows something. Now, the flip side of that is there are people who don't go outside, don't look out windows, don't empty the trash often, don't answer phone calls, don't return phone calls. Is that the case with Mr. Jordan Willis? Now we have a fifth wheel, Mr. Alex Weimer Lee. he was at this house. We also hear from Mr. Persano that he says he's been told that more people were at the house. So see, you don't even know what's the truth. You don't know who knows what, saw what. Conflicting versions, conflicting commentary by the lawyer, which is never, never good. So I'm going to ask this question. Alex, are you and Mr. Jordan speaking currently? Mr. Alex, have you spoken to any of the decedent's relatives, friends, girlfriends, fiancés? Have you spoken to any of them? We also get information that you have not gone to the funerals of these men. Why not? Oh, because of scrutiny. I guess so. So you see, there are a lot of elements circulating pertaining to the deaths of these men. You entitled to your opinion. Well, he's guilty. That's why he's not calling. Or he fears for his safety. I don't know. Could be all of the above. Could be all of the above. Could be all of the above. Hold on one second, y'all. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. It's a very, very sad situation. Very, very sad. I don't know what's going to happen with this case. I mean, seriously, I have no earthly idea where this is going. Because my fear is that whatever the reports tell us, you'll still be wondering about the who and the how. So whether it's drugs, poison, you're still going to be wondering that. And that's still a problem. And as I said, imagine it's not drugs. That's going to be even worse, I think. Because I think most people are probably speculating. That's what's going to be found inside of the men. But then imagine it's not. No narcotics are found. Then now your head's going to start really swimming. Like, oh, dear God. Well, what did they find? So imagine that it's not drugs, it's something else, it's poison. So now that takes you back to the who. And who might that be, the culprit? Just saying. Because even if you say it's drugs, you got to still go back to the who again. Who gave it to them? Who brought it? It's a problem either way, quite frankly. It's a problem either way. I don't know what to say. It's just it's a bad situation. It's a really bad situation. You can bicker back and forth, of who did what. But I must admit, what is strange to me, it's just this man having an answer for everything. That's bothersome to me. He has a response for every logical question. As I was explaining this to someone yesterday, and they were like, he works from home. He never made one phone call to anyone. That might have been AB. It was AB. You work from home for a scientific research, vaccination, whatever type of company. How in God's name are we going to sit here and believe you never made one phone call out from your phone? You didn't receive any phone calls. And as the attorney would say, a person can call you, but it doesn't mean that you saw the call come in, answered the call. So very true. But that's the thing about that. I don't have to answer my phone if I don't want to. I don't have to respond. And I also can lie and say, I didn't notice it. He said he received Facebook messages only. Is that the truth? And all this stuff about dummy phones, so on and so forth. Like I said, you don't know what to believe. Awfully quiet down there in that chat. Are you all in thinking mode? It's a debacle, indeed. He hasn't said he was on vacation. Well, because he probably wasn't low. Because he probably wasn't. When you go into different videos pertaining to this story, you'll see comments below the videos. And many people have a lot to say, according to the storyline. And one comment I've seen a few times in commentary is that perhaps he was also under the influence of the same drug, but he was able to survive and he slept it off. Well, that makes no sense because his attorney has said otherwise. First, he said sporadically he left. Then he had to come back and clear it up and say, oh, I didn't mean left the house. I mean moved around the house. So then that means you couldn't have slept it off if you're moving around sporadically. You see, as we have learned with spinning a web, you change the version because the narrative didn't fit time one, time two. So you have to keep changing according to the questions by officials. And you see this a lot in interrogations that are recorded. The detectives come in and ask, when was the last time you saw, Ray? And then you say, well, I haven't, or you give a time or date. But then they already know the answers to the questions that they're asking. They just want to see your response. So let's say you say, I didn't see him last night, Bob. But then the detectives say, well, I believe you did see him because we have you on CCTV footage going inside the apartment building. So there, now I've got to change my version. I do believe these officers know more, detectives know more pertaining to this information. Naturally, they do not tell you everything at the beginning of a story. And also, you know that they can change any assertions that they have made during an investigation, depending on the information at hand and any information that comes in while the case is being investigated. So what do they know as of today, 3 weeks in, almost 3 weeks in? What do they know pertaining to these dead men? Autopsies completed in one day, less than 24 hours. I read that. Preliminary or full autopsy. And what was found? Exactly. What was the state of the bodies? How many feet away were they? Inches. Facing outward toward the lawn or inward toward the door. We learned that also one of the men was in a lawn chair. When I first heard that, I didn't know if I wanted to believe that or not. So which victim was in the chair. Probably doesn't matter. Sat there, died, or placed in the chair. Curious. Died inside or outside. Died inside and put outside, all three victims. 3 guys went outside to talk, chat, smoke a cigarette, vape, get high, and died outside. What is the truth? How many witnesses to the deaths of these men? Because we also hear that more men were there, or people were there. So then we have to ask that. Men, women, what? Who are these people? Will they come forward? And think about it. Why would I want to come forward to implicate myself into having any knowledge of this? And I haven't said anything thus far, but we have learned with true crime that there's always a witness. There's always somebody who knows something, told something. It's only a matter of, excuse me, who's going to repeat it and tell the truth. We've learned this many times with true crime, that there's always somebody that knows the truth because most people can't hold a secret. And the sick part of that story is the obvious. You've committed a crime, you won't tell the truth, you're lying, and then you go sickly tell somebody else and they sickly hold a secret along with you. Excuse me. Lo says, I know, I just can't think of any other reason to ignore the whole world. I believe he was under something or absolutely bleeping lying. I would love to know if he actually did leave his house. Okay. Well, that's where CCTV footage comes in. Will we find out that Mr. Jordan did leave his home? Will we also find out that there were other people visiting the home, left the home, periodically came in and out of the home during this 2-day hiatus? That will also be interesting. Will somebody come forward with more information pertaining to the deaths of these men? Have people already gone to law enforcement to give their rendering of what happened in that house? And will Mr. Persono continue to give us more versions pertaining to his client and what happened? I don't know. But we have girlfriends speaking. One girlfriend says the victim was not a user. That's Mr. Dave Harrington. His mother's Jennifer Marquez. You've seen his mother speaking a lot. She's the one believing that Mr. Jordan would be the one to buy the drugs if indeed drugs were involved. We have a brother, Mr. Price, Mr. Ricky Johnson, who believes something is amiss in this story. So we have a few people who have spoken. We have some uncles who have spoken, an uncle who has spoken on one of the victims. We've had Mr. McGinney's cousin speak out. Few people have spoken out pertaining to the 3 men. But what is the truth to their activities? And as we know, as with most adults, people do not tell everything that they do and things they imbibe in. Because frankly, who wants to tell somebody, oh yeah, I'm an active user, recreational user of narcotics? I don't find that something to brag about. But depending on the type of social circles that you run in, it may be okay to brag that to somebody. Yeah, I snort a little cocaine every now and again. Yeah, I take a little meth every now and again. I can only see you saying that in a circle of people who are doing the same. But to people who are not on that level, they do not imbibe, you would look like a fool saying that to somebody who is not a user. Oh yeah, every now and again I toot a little bit. But then we've got those kind of people who just don't give a damn. They will tell anybody. They don't care. Yeah, I do this. I snort. I do this. And it's like it's no big deal. It's like, hey, yeah, I put my underwear on, brushed my teeth this morning. Will we find out these men were active users? I am curious to that. Do some of these relatives know that they use but don't want to say it on a national, local broadcast? But either way, if we find out it's in their system, people are going to assume that they did. But as I said before, the flip side of that is just because it's inside of you does not mean that you willingly took it and knew that's what it was. Could it be you, let's say, smoke marijuana, although it's illegal in some states and legal in other states? You smoked, but didn't know it was laced with anything. Because naturally, you can lace any type of drug beverage with the agent. So like I said, even if we find out, okay, they have drugs in their system, naturally, the medical examiner is going to tell you how much was in their system, if it could be lethal or not. But if it's laced with something, see, you just don't really know. I don't really know how you can explain it, quite frankly. I'm not a medical examiner, I'm not a scientist, I'm not any of those things. But like with alcohol, we know that they could tell you, oh, this person had this much alcohol in their system. Then the next question would be, oh, well, would it be enough to kill the person? Okay. So then I have to ask that same thing about the narcotics. If we hear that there are narcotics in their system, will it be, oh, they had this much in them that could kill them? I guess we have to wait to see. As I said before, I still got a feeling it's not going to be, it's still not going to end. Even if we find out they have drugs in their system, if, it's not going to end there. Maybe legally for the investigation, I don't know, but I don't see it ending. I really don't. And the fact that Miss Jennifer Marquez, David Harrington's mother, said she spoke to a drug task force agent or official at one point in the beginning will lead one to believe that they are investigating this crime as drug related. Because why would she be speaking to a drug force official? For what? Why would a drug task force person be talking to her? You would assume she'd be speaking to a detective. So they probably already know this is drug related. They just have not said so. And we have learned with investigations, they do not reveal everything that they see and hear and gather in investigation. That's just known. They can have a suspect in a crime. They don't readily just tell you, oh yeah, we know who it is, where they are, what color hat, shoes they had on. They don't do that. They pick and choose how they want to relay information to the public. So as you heard the other day, the autopsy was conducted less than 24 hours. They've already gathered something about the men, possibly the other person in the house, Mr. Jordan, in that short span. Now we have to ask that question. Did the detectives ask Mr. Jordan, do you imbibe in drugs? Do you use drugs, sell drugs? Do your friends use drugs? Because I can't see them not asking him that. And if they did, what was his answer? Sir, do you use drugs? Did he answer? Did he tell the truth? Sir, did your friends use drugs? Sir, do you have access to this, this, and this? What was his answer? Either way, it's a bad story because 3 people are no longer here. And as Cuomo has said in his commentary on News Nation, they were more than just Kansas City Chiefs fans. They were living their lives, coaching, fathers, brothers, uncles, cousins, friends to people, children. They were living. They were active people in the community doing things. So they're more than just sports fans. And I agree with that. You don't want to be just labeled a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Mr. Alex Weimer Lee, what do you know about January 7th, 8th? You give commentary that you reached out to one of the victims and Mr. Jordan, but you did not get a response. Very interesting. Will we get verification of that? Screenshots shown to the public that he did attempt to call the dead man and Mr. Jordan. But we also know in true crime, if there is nefarious business, that just because a person called someone does not verify that they don't have knowledge of something nefarious that happened. Because we have seen that with people who have murdered people. They will call the dead person's phone as if they're concerned about their whereabouts. And this is no correlation to him directly, but I'm speaking in general terms. If he knows something, if doesn't really mean anything. Family members, friends reached out to Alex. Hey, have you seen them? Have you seen them? We don't know where they're at, blah, blah, blah. And then he calls the homeowner and calls one of the victims. Because imagine how sick that would be. He already knows that they're back there dead, Mr. Alex. He knows that his friends are back there dead, but he calls the phone anyway of one of the victims. Ring, 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 ring. Some of you are probably thinking, what? Oh, yes, this has happened many times in true crimes. They know the victim is dead and they're ringing their phone, texting, emailing, knowing they're not going to get a response. Then we have sickos who pretend to be the dead person and message back people who are asking, hey, I've been trying to reach you. Hey, what's going on? Hey, did you block me? Hey, why aren't you answering? Now imagine that. So far, we have not heard that in this storyline, that any of the dead men responded to commentary. Also, there's questions about their belongings, keys, wallets. Were they found on the persons outside in the cold? Allegedly, one guy didn't have a coat on. We hear that from one of the uncles. And I can't see that guy lying. I would hope he wouldn't make that up. He also says he wouldn't have gone outside without a coat. So maybe that guy was the type, he liked to say warm, cold nature. I don't know. So see, everything's about interpretation. And everything's based on a version. And that's what this case is based on for now. A version. I don't know nothing. I didn't see nothing. I didn't hear nothing. Then here comes Alex. Oh, what he told you is not the truth. I left all of them alive watching TV. So it's up to you as a spectator looking through the looking glass if you believe what you're hearing. Because sometimes, as they always say, they'll say, seeing is believing. But then sometimes what you see ain't really what you think is going on. So which is it? What happened in that house? Did these guys take some drugs that were laced with a deadly agent and or poison? Were they deliberately poisoned, deliberately given fatal drugs? Vendetta, jealousy, rivalry. Someone's angry with them. Bad joke, prank played on someone. Or just a guy bought some drugs to party with, gave it to his friends, and they died outside. And this bloke is oblivious to the outside world, Mr. Jordan, and he has no knowledge of anything that happened with his friends allegedly outside. What is the truth? We also hear that Mr. Jordan has taken a leave of absence. So we have a lot of chitter chatter going on pertaining to this man. He doesn't know anything. He's giving different versions to his attorney. There's different versions from the Alex person coming forward. He's depressed. He didn't do anything. He would never hurt his friends. He would render aid. He's moved out of the house. Dogs were at his father's house. What else am I leaving out? Now he doesn't have a job. For a little while, rather. He has a job, rather, but he's taking off. Why would you be taking off? See, this is why I always tell people to pay attention to the information. I'm good at dissecting things because I listen first before I jump the gun on thinking something, or at least speaking on it. So let's go there. You have an answer for everything, Mr. Jordan. You have an answer for every question asked pertaining to these dead men. Now, I'm supposed to believe you have taken off from your job. Why? You worked from home. Thank you, Ellie. That's why I keep trying to tell everybody. You better pay attention. Because I asked the question before. Do you know that he worked for that company that they're putting out on social media? Do you have verification that he actually worked for the company? I always ask questions because when it comes to true crime, you just get a lot of fluff and a lot of he said and she said, but it helps if something can be verified. Yes, he works for our corporation. Yes, he works for our company. So don't you find it interesting that a man works from home, has moved from his home, he's staying somewhere where there's Wi-Fi, ding, 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 and now he ain't working. So what is he doing now? Drinking wine? Two days of oblivion, snowing outside. He doesn't know it's snowing outside. He doesn't know if it's cold outside, if the rain man has came, dancing on the lawn. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know there's 3 dead people outside. He never went and got his dogs. Did it ever occur to anybody? That's why I always say ask all the pertinent questions, because the truth is in all of that stuff that you've heard from Mr. Paserno via Jordan Willis and Mr. Alex Weaver Lee. When would the dogs return, Mr. Willis? Did you ever get your dogs back? Daddy kept them. Well, let's talk about that too. Because something isn't adding up. Because the more I talk, the more I'm listening to my own self repeat it. That's why I always tell people, if you want to know if something sounds right, just repeat it back to yourself. You work from home, but you're not working from home anymore. You moved out of a house that you didn't even stay a year in, allegedly. Big house for one person. Dogs gone, don't even hear when the dogs were returned. We hear that the father has dementia, so how can you rely on anything he has to say? Ding, ding, ding. Oh, he has a specialty dog. Listen carefully now. He has a specialty dog, but your pictures are of 2 dogs. So are we talking about your dogs, or your father has his own individual dog? See, there's something there with the dog shuffle. How many dogs are we speaking of, Mr. Jordan? Because it's something is amiss there. Dogs just so happen to be gone. This is why you know he knows something. I have to say this. If I don't know anything else about this story, my spirit tells me he knew they were dead back there. Because as I have explained to you, he has an answer for everything. If you have listened to anything I've said in this live stream, there's an answer, excuse for every question asked. 3 people are dead. You don't know they're dead. People banging, breaking and entering. People calling, no answer. You didn't call nobody in that 48 hours or less time period. That's strange. Father allegedly has dementia and a care dog. So why would the care dog be at your house? And they specify one dog, but you allegedly have 2 dogs. So how many dogs are we speaking of? See, I tell you, nobody's listening. And why would I be sharing a dog? That's stuff people do that were in relationships. We're getting a divorce. You go to court. Hey, I want my dog back. And then she fights for the dog, blah, 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 the dog. And then the judge says what? We're going to give the dog joint custody to both of you. Is that what we're talking about here? How many dogs are there? Where are the dogs now? Because I hate to get technical, but this is true crime. So make it make sense. Is the father with dementia? Does the father own a care dog for the dementia? Was the care dog also in the custody of Jordan Willis? How many dogs does Mr. Willis own? Where are his dogs now? Why would a person with dementia have a bunch of dogs? Would you want to leave a person with dementia a bunch of dogs? Hell no. That's why I keep trying to tell people. Listen at what you're hearing. Because just because a person's mouth is moving, it does not mean it's the truth. So why is this girl saying, oh, the daddy has dementia? So this must be one of the victim's girlfriend's fiancés, because somebody had to told her he has dementia. So then you have to go back now to the beginning of that debacle. Well, why is a sick person taking care of dogs when they can't take care of themselves? This is how technical you have to get, because they're putting this information out to the public. Exactly. No. So where are the dogs now? With the guy with the dementia, the daddy that don't got no memory? I'm just asking. Help me understand. Maybe I'm a little slow. Jordan's father has spoken. But see, that's even more interesting too. Glad you brought that up. The daddy with dementia is the one who's spoken on his behalf. Does he even know his son Jordan, if we are to believe he actually has dementia? See, everything is relevant because we don't know anything. We don't know the victims. We don't know Mr. Jordan. We don't know Alex. We don't know who Alex is. Who is he? He has a past dealing with drugs when he was younger, but as someone else said, you don't want to judge a person on some mistakes they made when they were 19 years of age. If he hasn't done anything nefarious in nature, any arrests, any violent crimes, drug offenses, then you leave it alone. But who is he? Who is Alex? Who were the men? Who are the other people that are allegedly there? Mr. Paserno, are you going to tell us the names of the people that were there? Because you didn't want to mention Alex's name, but it got out. This is a wicked, wicked story. It's wicked. Because as I said, even if you get information that the men had drugs in their system, it does not mean that they willingly imbibe the drugs. If you find out there's poison in their systems, logically, you know they wouldn't take poison deliberately. And maybe they took a drug, but it was deliberately laced with something to unalive the men. Or they took a drug and had no idea that a laced agent was in the drug. See, you don't know. And how can you prove it? Once it's ingested, how can you prove it? You can only get a synopsis by the quantity of the drug and the agent. Such as you hear them say, oh, she took enough poison to kill her, and it was literal. As you've heard with arsenic, when people are being poisoned, sometimes it's a slow burn because the culprit is only giving them little dabs of poison in their food, their iced tea, so on and so forth. So instead of just putting a heap of it where it could be noticeable during an autopsy, they just put a little bit in the iced tea, a little bit in, however it's being ingested. We even heard of the tainting, putting Visine and stuff in drinks and shampoo. I mean, people poison people all type of weird ways. And then that's another thing. Undetectable poisons. Very wicked. Is this a case of nefarious business? A deliberate kill of friends? So-called friends. Because that's the one thing I've asked you all this. Do you know your friends? Because you're going to have to prove that if it's nefarious. Let's say it is nefarious business. Whether drugs were found in their system or poison or undetected agents. If it's nefarious, how can it be proven? And I think a lot of people may not be focusing on that theory. How can you prove it? I think the only way you can prove it is if whatever is found inside of the men is at a lethal dose. But then sometimes I still tell myself, how could you prove it? Even if it's a big quantity of something inside. I can only see the medical examiner saying, well, it's poison and it's enough to kill a person. Then that would appear deliberate. But let's say something's in a drug. How would you prove that? I don't know. Just me throwing out my thoughts. That's the latest information. So a neighbor has come forward to say he was watching the debacle transpire outside. The gentleman's cars were parked outside. Snow was on the ground. EMTs came. Police cars came. He first noticed the young lady out on the phone. She was looking back at the house, the backyard. So he knew something was going on. But once he saw the ambulance, he really knew something had happened. He thought maybe it was just domesticated, maybe a fight between a husband and wife. Wasn't sure. We also get Banfield asking the reporter about the bodies coming out. Did he see any bodies coming out or how they looked? Many people are offended by her commentary and her questioning because, it's offensive to some. And then it's dark. How would he be able to see that far from his house inside filming all the way over to across the yard? He wouldn't be able to see that because naturally they would already be zipped up coming from the back and then through the gate and then into the yard and into the ambulance. So he wouldn't be able to see what they look like from there or what the positioning of the bodies were. 9 times out of 10, she asked that question because one guy was found in a chair. That's why she mentioned, well, one was found in a lawn chair. And some are probably questioning that. Okay, how did he get in the chair? Did he die in the chair? Was he slumped over? Was he sitting upright in the chair? Was he almost out of the chair? Was his head bent over facing toward his lap? I don't know. But I'm sure many people are curious. Well, why do you say that they didn't investigate? See, we don't know, lady. Those are the questions you have to ask, and you're not going to get an answer until they give us a press conference about what they saw on the scene, what was on the persons, how they were dressed, door open, door closed, cracked, locked, all of that. When you went inside, what did you find? Because as I said, if this is nefarious business, he's cleaned everything up. He's cleaned up. He's possibly got things off of the people, all of that. One moment, everybody. 1 second. Okay, everybody. Sorry about that. Had an important call. Thank you all so much for waiting. What did somebody say? Footprint trails outside. Too flat on their back, allegedly. Where'd you hear that about them being on their back, huh? They could have electrocuted themselves trying to fix something. Well, Lori, Cuomo has already mentioned that. And somebody else has mentioned no cords or anything that they know of that they were electrocuted. In my opinion, it's telling that the bodies were here, there, and over there. Yeah, I find that interesting too. That's why I said naturally they're not going to tell you everything in investigation, but I was wondering what's the circumference of the bodies. Now we learned that one sitting in a chair or in a chair, because I don't know how he was in the chair. So we have a body in a chair. What's the space between the chair and the people in the yard? How far out in the yard? Are we talking about just right off the slab of the concrete or farther out in the yard? Because if it's farther out in the yard, that's not gonna sit well with me either. On that video I just played. Say that again, Ellie. Well, and then they also said, when they said no foul play as far as wounds to the body, I think that would have already been mentioned as well, while waiting on toxicology reports and other reports. I think they would have mentioned that off the grid. Hey, these guys got electrocuted, because that you would naturally have some type of burn marks to the bodies if indeed the guys were electrocuted. I think that would have been mentioned day one. I don't think they would have held out on bringing the public that information, because I don't see hiding that if they were electrocuted. I mean, what would be the big secret in telling that? It's a like I said, just from the behavior of Mr. Jordan, this new person being introduced is also being at the house, Mr. Lee. You don't know what to believe because you're going by somebody's version. And if a lawyer can change the version and the narrative in just within days of bringing information, I don't know that I want to even believe things coming from Mr. Lee's mouth. Miss Marquez believes his version, but as I told you, do the other family members believe Mr. Lee's version? Because you have not heard Mr. Price or the other uncle say, oh yeah, I do believe Alex's version that he left at 12 or after 12. That's the only one person that's speaking up that she believes his version that I know of, and that's Miss Marquez. That's David's mother. So I've asked that question as well. Are everyone in unison in believing Mr. Alex's version? You see, because when you start factoring in another person coming forward with information, you then have to question the possibility of other people who have not spoken. And to me, that's a problem. That's a major problem. Because in the end, you got to remember something. When the bodies were found, you have a man who has not spoken with anybody in 48 hours or so. So that's troublesome in itself, whether you want to believe him or not. Okay? Whether you want to believe him or not. So you haven't made contact with the outside world in less than 48 hours, Mr. Jordan. Number two, the victims have not made contact with anybody in almost 48 hours. Cars sitting on the street. Don't know if they've been moved, untouched. You get wind of other people being in the house on the 7th, yet you've not heard of anybody else in the past week so far. No one has come forward to say, yes, I was another party in the house. Yes, I saw this, this, and this. Yes, drugs were used, drinking, whatever. Then you have a neighbor now bringing forth the video just of the outside, which to me is no big deal because it doesn't show anything. What I want to see is CCTV footage of cars coming and going. Other people coming in and out of the house. That will debunk whatever Alex and Mr. Jordan has revealed to the public. But naturally, that will be a part of the death investigation, I'm assuming. But somebody believes it's drug related, I'm assuming, because why was the mother speaking to a drug task force agent, deputy, whatever, detective? Because obviously they possibly saw something at the scene that led them to believe it was drugs. Now, is it just because it's 3 dead and nobody was stabbed or shot? Then we say, okay, then it must be drugs. But naturally, you still have to investigate because you can't just go out and just say, well, it's 3 dead. They weren't shot, no bullet holes, blah, blah, blah. You still need to be definitive on the manner of death. So it is what it is. I don't know. It's a very dire situation. Now, Mr. T-Rail 757 has a video coming up. Jordan Willis being detained the night the bodies were found. Let's talk about that as well, and then I'll check out of here. One of the uncles says that he was arrested, but we don't hear of an arrest. We haven't seen a mug shot that he was arrested. So maybe that's what was happening. He was detained. But detained is a normal thing to happen because you do have dead people outside and you are the homeowner. So that wouldn't be some shock to me. Anybody would be detained. You're the homeowner. There's dead people outside. Wouldn't matter if there's inside or outside. This is your house. So obviously he was questioned, but the point is there is no arrest record that I have seen or heard, because that would have made news day one that he was arrested in connection to the deaths. So they asked him questions. He's been speaking with the law officials per Mr. Persono's commentary, but no arrest in this case. And police are still saying that this is a death investigation and no foul play is believed to have transpired in the deaths of these men. Will there be an arrest? As I said, depending on what is found inside of the reports, can it be proven that the men were given laced drugs and or poison? That's why I said poison. If they can say, the medical examiner, this was enough to kill a horse, because you've heard that, mentioned loosely in general. This was enough right here in this human's body to kill a horse, kill a moose. Then you possibly can now have a homicide investigation. This was enough in all 3 bodies to kill, let's say, 200 mooses or whatever. It's a diabolical situation either way, because you don't know anything. And whether I want to believe that what will be revealed will be helpful, I still think it's going to be some smoke regardless. Whether it's drugs, poison, because even with the drug situation, it's like a toss-up of 50-50. The quantity. Will there be enough for there to be a rendering to say what exactly? Laced? Deliberate? Because I don't know about those type of things. So I can't really speak on that because I don't know anything about drugs and lacing of drugs and mixtures of drugs, and I just know with poison they can detect that it would be deliberate naturally. Because really, when it comes to poison, even if there's a little in there, you know, a person wouldn't willingly digest a poison. That would make no sense. Why would I want to take poison? And 3 people taking poison just for fun, that wouldn't make any sense. So if you see a large quantity, one would say, okay, these people were poisoned. This was deliberate. As for the drugs, see, that's a whole nother situation. That's what I think I have. I'm on the fence about because I don't know. Can it be detected as deliberate? I don't know. Guess I could ask the question through Google. I'm gonna put this in here for one minute. Hold on. Going into Google. I'm trying to get information on this. This is probably an odd question to ask. Sometimes Google can't answer stuff. You have to be trying to be specific in my question. Let's see. Oh, this is about this is about King County's medical examiner work. Let's see, 2017, approximately 70,000 people died of fatal drug overdoses in the United States, making drug overdose the leading cause of death among people aged 18 to 49. A timely understanding of local drug overdose trends is important for prioritizing resources and targeting services. Monitoring fatal drug overdoses has traditionally relied on vital statistics, a registry of births and deaths managed by state and territory agencies. Let's see, death records and vital statistics are based on death certificates. So they're really talking about medical examiner work. It says only medical examiners, MEs, or coroners are authorized to certify drug overdose deaths. These certifications are aided by laboratory testing of decedent specimens, limited funding for death investigation systems and toxicology laboratories in the United States is widely acknowledged. The National Center for Health Statistics indicates that death certificate records for drug overdose deaths are not available for analysis until an average of 4 months after the death date. So I guess it won't go into a national database. Until an average of 4 months after the death date. Well, so this is really about the ME's medical examiner work, their work. I'm trying to get more information on detection. That's what I'm looking for. toxicology report shows whether any substances were found in the dead person, including alcohol, THC, and narcotics. Let me see this one here. Maybe this one can give me what I'm looking for. Autopsy reports can show how a person died. The report can show how many gunshots, stab wounds injured the person who died, as well as what parts of the body were damaged. The travel of bullets, trajectory, example to the back or from left to right. This can help investigators determine the position of the person when they were fatally hurt. The toxicology report can also show whether a person has any substances in their body that may have led to impairment. Now, what the autopsy report can't show. In general, an autopsy report cannot detail in what order a person's wounds were inflicted. The report will detail the number and location of wounds. Detectives can then use this information along with other evidence that has been gathered to infer how an accident unfolded. However, there are more than some instances where wound order can be determined based on the amount of bleeding that may or may not have occurred with the injury. Toxicology testing also cannot determine whether a person actually was intoxicated. Wow, that's deep. See, that's why I wanted to try to find something that can give us more information. So let me repeat that again. Hold on one second. Okay. Toxicology testing also cannot determine whether a person actually was intoxicated. So this is, oh mercy. Each person processes substances differently based on their height, weight, age, metabolism, and prior exposure. In addition, unless a death is witnessed in a hospital or by a paramedic, the time of death that is listed on the autopsy report is the time the person was found and pronounced dead. Okay? Evidence of decomposition or other after-death changes in the body can help provide an estimate of when a person's fatal injuries were suffered. Cause of death versus manner of death. Coroners will make two findings on a report related to how a person died. The cause of death is what exactly led to a person's death. For example, gunshots, stab injuries, or acute narcotic intoxication. Okay, so that's cause of death. Gunshot, stab, or narcotic intoxication. Manner of death is one of 5 categories that coroners use to generally classify the death: accidental, natural causes, homicide, suicide, and undetermined. So let's go there. What is the cause of death? What is the manner of death? Very interesting information. A cause of death is more specific than the general determination made in a manner of death ruling. Neither ruling by itself is a determination that says a person's death is a crime under Ohio law. Okay, interesting. So in Ohio, neither ruling by itself is a determination that says a person's death is a crime. Lord have mercy. Part of an autopsy is taking a blood and urine sample for testing. The final report, which takes several weeks to complete, shows the presence of a number of substances, including fentanyl, ethanol, THC, methamphetamine, and benzodiazepines. If a drug is detected in a person's system, there is also a measurement of how much of that substance is in a person's system, and that's also what I asked. Measured in nanograms per milliliter. While a toxicology report can determine if someone consumed a substance, it cannot always accurately reflect when the drug was taken or whether someone was intoxicated. Okay? That determination is dependent upon a person's metabolism, their tolerance of a drug from potential prior use, and a multitude of other factors. How long do autopsy reports take to complete? An autopsy report can take anywhere from several weeks to several months to be completed. Oh, Lord. This is partly due to waiting on toxicology tests to be run and those results to be available. The amount of time an autopsy report takes also is dependent on how many autopsies the coroner's office is conducting at a given time, how many pathologists are employed, and how quickly they are able to complete their report. A deceased person's body is not kept at the morgue while the report is pending. After an autopsy is finished, the body is released to the family or a funeral home serving the family for preparation for burial. Okay, so we know that. So while the report is pending, it's not kept at the morgue. So it gets released to the family. This is the Columbus Dispatch, if you're curious to where this information is coming from. Oh, Lordy. Here's something in the Google search under all of this information I find interesting. Why is the tongue removed during an autopsy? Oh my goodness. I remove your tongue during an autopsy. We need to make sure you didn't bite down on it. Need to make sure you don't have drugs at the back of your throat. April 19, 2022. Lord have mercy. Why would a coroner request a toxicology report? How do the toxicology reports help determine cause of death? Experts took to see if the concentration of drugs or poisons are in toxic or lethal range. They take into account other information such as symptoms before their death. Well, we won't know that because there's nobody here to tell us anything. Who pays for an autopsy when someone dies? If a state orders a coroner's autopsy, then the state must bear its costs. This can happen during the course of a criminal investigation. The relatives or carers of whoever has died do not need to contribute to the payment in any way. This was uploaded June 28, 2023. Okay. Oh, Lordy. How long after death does the body release fluids? There are 4 general stages of putrefaction. Can't pronounce this word. Putrefaction. 4 to 10 days after death. Autolysis occurs in gaseous odor, and discoloration starts. Black putrefaction 10 to 20 days after death. Exposed skin turns black. Bloating collapses and fluids are released from the body. So 4 to 10 days. But naturally, they were frozen. So I asked the question the other day. Had no one went to look for the men, would this Jordan Willis ever called 911? Well, now you know that with the toxicology reports, they can't determine if a person is intoxicated or not. So all this goes to urine and being, I guess, taken from the decedents. Very interesting information. Well, I learned a little something different today. That's what I was trying to get information about. How much drugs, the comparison of the amount of drugs in a person's system. You still can't just say, well, yeah, is it poison or is it, I don't know what I'm saying. It's strange. Drug overdose death reporting. This is out of Minnesota Department of Health. They say overdose deaths are preventable. Drug overdose death reporting is an important public health charge on an individual level. It allows NDH and others to understand the circumstances that may have led to a person's death. On a population level, it allows NDH, local public health agencies, treatment providers, community stakeholders to better understand characteristics of drugs used and demographics of people who die from opiate overdoses to improve prevention efforts across the state. It provides the public with important information to keep them informed about what is happening in their state. Opiate overdose deaths are usually caused by prescription opiates that may or may not have been prescribed to a person. Heroin, fentanyl, and or other synthetic opiates. They can happen anywhere. Common settings where overdose deaths occur include private residences, hospitals, and in other public community settings. The manner of overdose deaths are most commonly found to be accidental, unintentional, suicide, or undetermined. An accidental death is one that was totally unforeseen and unsuspected. Deaths suspected to be caused by drug overdose are usually investigated by a medical examiner or coroner. They determine the manner of death, accidental, unintentional, suicide, etc., by investigating the circumstances around the death. Circumstances can include scene findings, autopsy results, toxicology results, and health history. Medical examiners and coroners record their findings on a death certificate. Death certificates include the information listed above, along with demographic information about the person who died. If you would like more information, then you can go to this office to get that information. This is from the state of Minnesota, this information I'm bringing you. So, manner of death based on investigation of the circumstances by a coroner or state medical examiner is determined to be natural, accidental, unintentional, suicide, homicide, undetermined. And also the circumstances and the cause of death investigations are scene findings, autopsy results, toxicology reports, health history. This is also coming from the state of Minnesota. So I'm assuming this would also probably be similar to other states. So let's ask those questions here with the circumstances. What did the detectives find at the scene? What have the autopsies revealed about the victims? What will the toxicology reports reveal about the victims? And also the health history of the victims. Because I'm sure many of you probably didn't even think about that. Who had a good heart, bad heart problems, heart murmur? Anybody ever have a stroke, brain aneurysms, blackouts, seizures, epilepsy? All those things are also relevant to whatever the findings are. And as I said before, you have cause of death and manner of death. Cause is what led up to the person passing away. Manner would be, natural, accidental, suicide, homicide, undetermined. What will we find out was the cause of death, number one? Number two, will they even be able to give a manner of death? Because we know it's not natural. No way 3 people died together naturally when allegedly other people were at the house. So we're going to scratch off natural. Accidental, unintentional. That would be they took something or depends on, I guess, your interpretation. Electrocution, since some of you want to throw that out there. That would be, I think, accidental. Suicide, going to scratch that off. And I don't really think it's accidental. If we want to say accident, such as like they died in a car crash or bulldozer came and knocked them over. That to me would be considered accidental. So I'm taking off natural. I'm taking off accident by machinery, electrocution. I'm taking off suicide. Homicide and undetermined would be the last two I'm going to lean towards because of the behavior of Mr. Jordan. Now, I know that sometimes things don't appear to be intentional, even with the findings being released, but his behavior to me is suspect And I don't want to accuse a person of doing anything to another human being without having proof. But I tend to weigh on the logic and the stats and the behavior of the people involved in the story. And if you have an answer for everything, and you have all these random ass excuses that just seem so far-fetched, I lean towards you know something. Maybe you didn't hurt them, harm them, but you knew that they were dead. And that to me is negligence. And maybe you went and looked and realized you couldn't render aid. Let's say that. Went out, looked, touched, they're dead. They're not moving, no pulse. But you still should call 911 because that's the right thing to do. No matter what was going on in that house. What was going on outside and what you thought was going on outside. The right thing to do would be to call law enforcement and the ambulance. That makes no sense to me. I don't care about your job, your title. So what? You didn't do anything. It won't matter what they were doing and what they took. See, that's the whole point of that. You don't have anything to hide. You're not involved. So what's the problem with calling 911? So all this BS with the father saying they were good friends. He would have rendered aid. He's depressed. I don't know him from a can of paint, just like I don't know those 3 dead men. I don't know Alex. So I'm not going to speak on what somebody else would and would not do, because we've seen time and time again of people witnessing crimes and deaths, accidental, on purpose, intentional, and they hold the secret. So I'm not vouching for anybody. My mama didn't give birth to none of those people, so I ain't vouching for them. I'm not even vouching for the ones my mama gave birth to. I'm just keeping it real. I don't do that. I'm not going to go out here and say what somebody would and wouldn't do. Oh, she would never do that. It's BS. I've witnessed here lately from experience. The main one who been hollering about what somebody would and wouldn't do, they're doing similar BS. Just a little slicker. Just a little slicker, that's all. See, that's that old saying, the one that hollers the loudest. So that's why you can't say what a person would and wouldn't do. Oh, they would render aid. Yeah, they care. They love their friends. Oh, they bought baseball tickets, football tickets. Those things are irrelevant. Just like somebody said, well, if you weren't planning on hurting them or you didn't know that they were going to die, what do the tickets have to do with anything? It don't. Because you don't know what the hell happened. You don't know who's involved. You don't know if it was just accidental. They took something. They were experimenting. Somebody handed somebody something. It was laced with something. We don't know. That's what my fear is with this case, is that even if they ingested a drug willingly, can it be, how are you going to detect if it was intentional? Somebody gave them something intentional laced, or they just took it and just were having fun. That's the whole point. The dead people can't tell you anything. And even if they took it from a person and they live, let's say, it will still be their word against the person's. Oh, yeah, he gave me a drug. He tried to kill me. Well, the person is not going to say, oh, yeah, I did that. Let's just think about that. 3 people lived. They were able to be revived. And they say, Jordan gave us the drug, or Alex or whoever gave us the drug. Do you actually think that person is going to sit up and tell a detective, yes, I gave them, number 1, poison. Number 2, yeah, I laced the drug. Yeah, I knew the drug was laced. Who's going to do that? I'm just saying. Imagine they lived and an outsider in that house gave them the drug. The homeowner, another guy, Pookie, Ray Ray, whomever. Who is going to admit, yeah, I gave them a laced drug? I did that. I purposely did that. I bought the drug and I knew it was laced. I put poison in the drug. I put poison in the tea, the beer, whatever, the nachos. That's where I see the problem. And then there's the worst case scenario of the manner of death, undetermined. Medical examiner cannot make a sound decision on what happened. Because as I said, there's a cause of death, manner of death. And that's where I'm, as I said, I don't know medical jargon. Because naturally you're going to measure the contents of stomach, all of that, what was found inside of them, medical history, all that. All three obviously had the same thing. I think we can agree on that. But did anybody else in the house take what the three took? If so, why is that person alive and these are dead? Because as you heard in the commentary I just brought you, metabolism, all that breaks down drugs, alcohol. Everybody breaks down things in their body differently. Toxicology reports say they can't even show that you were intoxicated. So that will go back to the medical examiner doing the autopsy with the blood and the urine. So let's ask that. Were all three over the legal limit of alcohol? Number one. Less, more, over the legal limit. What all will be found in the toxicology report as far as narcotics, pills, so on and so forth? Will they be poison? Substantial amount? Lace drugs? Different types of drugs? No drugs. Just poison. See the variances, the options, endless. And then also, you can't find anything in the damn toxicology reports. How about that? As I said before in my last live stream, imagine they don't find anything. Medical examiner toxicology reports. They don't find anything, which I doubt that. But hey, anything's possible. We've seen it so many times with people digging up the dead, testing their hair and bones and all that, because somebody starts bringing forward information that, hey, they've got 2 dead husbands over there in Idaho and Utah and Hawaii or somewhere else. Nobody knew this. Oh, he's got more dead wives, more dead friends, more dead neighbors. So now we got to exhume bodies. That's what I'm praying doesn't happen here. They get it right. They get it right. If there's any information that anybody has that can help aid in this investigation, please come forward. Tell the truth. If you know of anything suspicious on anyone in the storyline, anybody in the circle, anybody that's decedent, anything that's of use, tell the truth. Because you want this to be done right. If indeed this is a nefarious business, you want parties to be accounted for. They have to stand account. Because I don't know what happened in that house outside. Do not know if this is an issue of drug overdose or poison. I don't know. Or just lace drugs. But the point is, it's a bad, bad situation. Because they have left behind family members, children, and even with the kids, somebody has to explain to those kids why the father is not coming home. Fathers are not coming home. And as I said, I don't want to be insensitive to either party involved, but I will say the behavior of Mr. Jordan is suspect to me. It just seems too convenient of him being oblivious to phone calls, messages, people banging on doors, dead people outside, cars outside, dogs removed on a day where friends are outside, no longer alive. That's what's suspicious. Because if somebody can come forward and say, he talks to me all the time, even while he's working. He messages while working. He receives calls and messages while working. He goes to Starbucks on a lunch break. Then that will show me he has not been truthful with law enforcement and the information he has given his attorney. That's why I said somebody needs to speak up on the behavior of Mr. Jordan to say otherwise. Oh, he goes out on his lunch. He's dubious about doing his work Monday through Friday from this time to that time. He isn't known to imbibe in drugs, alcohol while working, on the clock, off the clock. See, that's what you're looking for. It's somebody to bring you information pertaining to what he has told his lawyer. Oh, he walks his dog at this time, that time. Oh, I usually see him with the dogs coming and going. That's what you're looking for. Somebody to confirm or deny what he has told the lawyer and what the lawyer has told us. Did he clock in those 2 days? But nobody even asked that question. Did Jordan Willis clock into his computer to do his work on the 8th, the 9th? Because that's going to be very relevant to his state of mind, and if he also was under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or both. Did they take a toxicology report from Mr. Jordan? Checkmate. Because that would go to show he took some of the drugs, but he survived. Stay woke. Food contents in the victims. What did they eat last time they ate? Was he legally drunk when the police got to his house? So I'd like to know that. Did they do a toxicology report on Mr. Jordan to show what he had been imbibing recently and up until the time the police got there? It would be disturbing to find out that they did not even test him for alcohol or drugs, because you'll want to know that to help aid in the investigation of the 3 decedents. Because you have to ask yourself, if we find out drugs are involved, well, I'd want to know if the homeowner also used. If the homeowner had in his system what the dead men had. Stay woke. Why is he alive and they're dead if he took the same drugs? Mr. Lee, same thing. Has anybody tested him for drugs? Did anybody test Mr. Jordan's hands to see if he had contact with any type of lethal drug? What was found in the house? Anything came with the searches? Well, he hasn't been arrested for anything such as possession of narcotics, this or that. Because I'm sure that would have been released to the public. Why not? Any residue found in the house of any type of agents, substances? And what was found on the victims? What wasn't found on the victims? Were there personal effects found on them? There's gossip that there was stuff in the house belonging to the victims. I don't know. Nobody's confirmed it. Police definitely aren't going to say anything. And why haven't we heard from the police department? Well, still an open investigation. Naturally, they're not going to say anything. And did any of the victims soil themselves? Which we hear that usually happens with death, but they're frozen, so you still will probably see something on the clothing. Will that reveal anything? Regurgitation. Naturally, that will be frozen. Not to be, descriptive, but all that's going to be relevant. Anybody was convulsing, had a seizure, any type of scrapes on the head, bumped their head, falling to the ground. I don't know. Naturally, you wouldn't have any scrapes if you fell in the grass. If indeed that's where you fell. Those are my questions. I want to thank you all for joining me. You all have a wonderful week. I'll be back with more commentary here shortly. I want to talk to you about some shenanigans going on out west. But when I get an update pertaining to this said information, I will bring it to you. At the beginning of this live stream, I bring you updates pertaining to 6 people found deceased in the Mojave Desert. 6 men have been arrested in connection to those murders. One of the decedents made a 911 call to tell the authorities that he had been shot alongside others during a marijuana deal that went bad, and he also died. Mr. Murdaugh will not be getting a new trial. Miss Hill, who was the clerk during the trial, she's being investigated by SLED, 2 separate investigations. She also testified in his hearings that she did not coerce anyone on the jury panel to try to sway them to vote guilty in his trial. You can either believe it or don't. I'm going to put a poll up pertaining to that. And in this debacle of the Kansas City 3, we have information of non-uses of narcotics, dogs being over here at Pawpaw's house, Pawpaw having dementia, Pawpaw having an 80 dog, but then allegedly this man had 2 dogs. So what's the truth about the dogs? How many dogs? Daddy got dementia, don't got dementia. Does he have a separate dog, care dog? What's the truth of anything? What is his role in this? Alex's role? Do they have knowledge of the deaths of these people? What is the truth? It's very diabolical. This is just a crazy story to me. One found in a chair, others in the yard. What's the circumference between the person in the chair versus the footage of them being in the yard? How far out of the yard? Close to the patio slab, concrete. What are we talking about here? Drugs, no drugs. Poison, what? And just the fact that this man has an answer for everything. Every question, he has an answer. So is there somebody that can refute what the lawyer has brought forward of this 48 hours in a house, never coming out, never shopping, DoorDash, nothing. Check the mail, empty the trash. See, that's what you need. Somebody to say, oh, he empties the trash every 2 days. Oh, he walks the dog at this time and this time. Yeah, I saw him come out of the house. I saw him check the mail. I saw the cars move. Checkmate. No, the car stayed there the whole time. See, that's what you're looking for. A rebuttal with a receipt. Not gossip, not innuendo, but a damn receipt. And will we hear from somebody else that they were in that house? And also, a neighbor has spoken to News Nation that he filmed the debacle going on outside the house that night. It's all dark, so you really can't see anything. Just his assertion that something must have happened over there at that house. Cars were on the street. That was strange to him, that they had not moved. And another thing, were tickets put on the cars, or it's okay for them to park outside the house? You have to ask all that. Are there actual parking spaces? Because I didn't notice that in the street, that there were parking spaces. But some neighborhoods don't have parking spaces. But you can, park near the curb. So you have to ask that too. What's the protocol of parking off the street, off-street parking? Is it the norm for neighbors to call on you for off-street parking? But anybody with sense, people have functions, parties, get-togethers. People have to be able to park somewhere. That's just the norm. People have to be able to park somewhere. Once you fill up the driveway, where are you going to park your car? So were there any tickets on the cars? Did anybody call to complain about the cars being parked on the street? So you have to ask all those questions. Did anybody seen tampering with the cars, going in and out of the cars? Were the doors locked to the car? See? 1,000 questions. Where does the owner park his car when he was living at the house? Inside, outside, driveway, in the garage? What? And we also learned Mr. Jordan is taking a leave from his job. Why? Why take a leave when you work from home? That makes no sense to me. Or was he fired? How about that? That's my commentary. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $BigAngie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome in the live stream. Thank you all so much for your time, commenting, take the polls, be heard. Join me a little bit later for live number 2. Thanks for stopping by. You've been listening to the Vote XL.